Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hello everybody, my name is Associate Professor Peter Malliaras. I am a academic at Monash University and a physiotherapist. I just wanted to, before I start this Talking Tendons podcast, just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of things going on. First of all, there's a conference at Queen Mary University of London, which is in September, early September, and it's organised by Dylan Morrissey and Nat Padilla and the crew there. So get on to that, have a look. That should be advertised soon. That should be really good. I'm going to be speaking, but there's a lot of other really good people speaking there. And I've also got some courses, Mastering Lower Limb Tendinopathy courses in the UK, September 4th, 5th and 6th in Glasgow, Manchester and London. So this Talking Tendons podcast is a bit of a throwback to an old paper, but a really good one. It is by Farley et al., and it was published in 1991, and the title is Hopping Frequency in Humans, a test of how springs set stride frequency in bouncing gaits. So it's one of the ones that really helped me to understand things like the importance of contact time and vertical stiffness. And I just wanted to go through some of the key points, but I definitely recommend have a read of the paper. So basically, Farley likens or makes an analogy to the spring-like action of the Achilles and a pogo stick. So if you ever jumped on a pogo stick, you'd know that it stores energy, then it releases it again, and it's similar to the Achilles tendon, which also stores energy and releases it again. So I think that's a really good analogy, and they talk about that throughout the paper. And he highlights that it's a really energy-saving mechanism. I did do a Talking Tendons podcast on an old Roberts paper as well not long ago, which also talks about stretch, shorten cycle and energy storage. But Farley highlights in this that 35% of energy during stride could be passive energy from the Achilles tendon, which is massive, contribution to energy and locomotion. So really, really important mechanism for efficiency of human movement. So basically what they try and do in this is to try and work out what is the preferred frequency for hopping for humans, and also try and work out at that preferred frequency how do humans hop. So is it a case that they've got this preferred frequency and it's because of minimization of metabolic cost, which is one of the things that they were interested in. They didn't measure that, as far as I could see from the paper directly, but they inferred that from some of the biomechanical measures that they made. So what did they do then to explore this hopping frequency, and what sort of what factors predicted or associated with it? They tested 4 healthy participants that were young, 20 to 22 years old, and they got them to hop at 1.2 to 3.6 hops per second. Okay, so quite a range in hopping frequencies, and they also gave them 2 instructions, which I think is a really key and important part of the paper. One instruction was just hop as you like, do whatever you like. Whatever is comfortable for you within those hopping frequencies. Or the other instruction was try within that frequency, stay within the frequency, but hop as high as you can. Okay. Now, what they found it has been sort of demonstrated in other hopping studies as well, and that is that humans tend to prefer to hop at about 2 to 2.2 hops per second. Okay, so they confirmed that. I think the exact figure was 2.17 hops per second. The other interesting thing that they found is when you go below that, it's not a hop anymore. It's basically more of a jump because you're stopping for too long when you go down, and the characteristics of the ground reaction force are not the same as those of hopping, so you don't get this maximal ground reaction force at the point where you're lowest in the hop, so you've got the most excursion in your vertical in your center of mass, you could say. It doesn't follow that, which is what you see with hopping. So it's different. It becomes different to a hop, and they argue that humans prefer 2.2 because that's when you start to be able to make it into a hop, and it's more efficient. You're using your Achilles more as that passive energy supplier. So that's really interesting. So below 2.2 sort of becomes less of a hop. That was one of their major findings. Then the other thing that they found is that interesting finding was looking at the two different instructions that they gave them. So what they found is that basically people choose, if you just give them a 2.2 hops per second frequency and just tell them to hop, they'll do it in a way that minimizes metabolic cost. So they won't do it maximally. So if you just tell them just hop, whatever's natural, whatever feels easy, they'll do it in a way which minimizes metabolic cost. And that generally is contracting the muscles slower. That's the way to think about it. The faster you contract your muscles, the more metabolic cost there most likely will be. So they talk about that in the paper, which is interesting. So people at 2.2 hertz, they pretty much just hopped within themselves. So their contact time was higher. They had more time to then generate force on the ground and then hop. Whereas when they had the instruction of hop as high as you can, there's two strategies they use to achieve that within a given hopping frequency, and that was to decrease contact time and to increase vertical stiffness. So vertical stiffness, remember, is really just the ground reaction force divided by the amount of excursion in the center of mass, or the amount of change in the center of mass. So that's really interesting. So basically, vertical stiffness within a given contact, within a given hop frequency, is a really important strategy to try and hop higher, hop better, hop with more power. But it costs more energy, so people don't generally choose to do it that way. So that's interesting, and I think that sort of summarizes the key points that I wanted to make from the Farley paper. It's a really well-cited paper. It's one that people always cite for hopping. But I guess the key take-home for clinicians is think about your instructions when you're telling someone to hop. If you tell them to hop as high as they can versus just hop what is natural, what feels easiest for them, they're going to save metabolic energy and just hop within themselves with the second instruction, okay? So it just depends on what your outcome is for that particular hopping task that you're trying to give them. And generally in rehab, we'll give a combination of different hops, and you'd expect over time they improve with both of them in terms of their efficiency. Alrighty, so look, thank you for that. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.